Well, time now to take a look at the international newspaper headlines, and joining me to do this is Vernal Scott, author and diversity consultant. Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's start with Nigeria's paper, This Day, and we've got a story here with General Muhammadu Buhari about the economy.
Well, actually, the story that really caught my eye...
We'll start with this one first, and then we'll go to the other one.
Well, I mean, this one I haven't had a chance to look at,
I'm
afraid. Sorry. But the story that did catch my eye was about Broderick Bazimo, the former Minister of Police Affairs.
OK, so the headline there, Jonathan didn't fail to tackle Boko Haram insurgency. So this is Goodluck Jonathan, who is the outgoing president.
Yes, and I think, you know, the first thing that any leader has got to do is protect and promote the welfare of his people. And the essence of this story is that Jonathan didn't fail, as it says. And, you know, clearly the world can see that you know, something went wrong. And, you know, the whole point of being a leader is to take responsibility for when things go right or go wrong. And I think it's a bit of a shame, really, that Broderick is suggesting that Goodluck Jonathan couldn't have done better. Nobody is saying that he's entirely to blame for Boko Haram, that they are to blame for their own atrocities, clearly. But I think it's very important that lessons are learned so that the new president knows what he's doing and learns from past lessons.
I think with Muhammadu Buhari, who is about to be taking over, so far the military has obviously stepped up its campaign, and there's been some successes with the release of large numbers of women and girls from the Sambisa Forest Reserve, something that obviously wasn't done under the reign of Jonathan.
Absolutely.
But yeah, remains to be seen. OK, well, let's move on then. Let's move to the China Daily, and we have a photograph here of Xi Jinping meeting the Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko.
I don't actually have that story here.
OK. Well, let's just talk about the importance then, just generally, about China and its ability to grow and make links with the East.
Yes, well, China is the nation, the economy to watch. It really is doing great things around the world, with technology especially. It's also heavily involved in African countries and the Caribbean, like Jamaica. There's enormous new initiatives going on in Jamaica that should transform the economy and the dependency of certain African countries and the Caribbean. So I think it's great that China is behind these great initiatives. That said, I do think we need to keep an eye on the human rights record of China as well. It is not a democracy. There are lots of things that are wrong with how it treats human beings. That needs to be kept in mind. Yes, it's great that they're being innovative and that they're making, you know, great progress economically, but human rights matter. Without human rights, you don't have much else.
I mean, China's main sort of MO here is really to sort of increase its economic belt, isn't it? That's going to connect it to Europe, and I think possibly it will be interesting to see how cosy their relationship with countries such as Russia becomes in the next few years. Let's move on to The Independent. This is a UK newspaper. Of course, we've just had a general election. We have the Tories in power, and we had a number of leaders resign, not least Ed Miliband, and now the leadership contest for the Labour Party is up. And Andy Burnham is one of the favourites, but the Blairites there, the headline, fight to stop union favourite, because, of course, Ed Miliband was also a union favourite. Absolutely.
I think Ed Miliband had a vanity about him that was narcissistic. You know, he had no reason, I think, beyond the trade union support to be where he was. And frankly, I was not surprised at all at the outcome of the election. What I find particularly interesting, though, in the post-mortem of the election are some of the candidates that are in the running for taking over Labour. My focus is on Chuka Umana, simply because, you know, the black community or minority ethnic communities in the UK, almost like in a trance state, automatically when it comes to elections, tick the Labour box. Here is an opportunity with Chuka Umana, whose first abilities is his skill, his talent, his intellect, rather than his colour. But here is a black man. If he was white, I am certain that he would be the front runner already. However, he is black, and it's going to be interesting to see
well, Burnham's
whether
front runner
or not,
because he's more of a traditionalist, whereas Chuka isn't a traditionalist, regardless of colour.
Well, actually, you know, I think that, you know, with Chuka, he is he's a fresh face, really, and Burnham and Yvette Cooper and the rest of them are very much, you know, of previous leaders, and I think that it's important that the Labour Party puts its rhetoric aside and puts their vote in this young man who is extremely talented. Andy Burnham stood before in the past and did not succeed. Let's, you know, have a clean slate, move forward, get rid of the rhetoric, put the votes where the rhetoric is, and put Chuka Umana forward.
we know he's got your vote. Let's move on to the national, and that is the UEA newspaper. Houthis take up coalition truce offer.
I actually don't have that one either. I do have this one, which I thought was...
Well, let's briefly just talk about the situation in Yemen, because that is a humanitarian crisis waiting... well, a humanitarian crisis that is in crisis. What needs to be done by the international community? The US has obviously backed this Saudi coalition.
Yes.
The ceasefire hasn't held. It's due to take place again tomorrow. How far forward are we?
Well, you know, what is needed is a plan, you know, that isn't just about dropping bombs and winning. There are men, women and children on the ground, and I think what's needed is a way forward, a plan that involves all the various parties, that's going to promote the human or the welfare of the people on the ground. In any situation, you've got to have a plan for the crisis that's at hand, but also what's the vision? What needs to happen?
This takes us nicely into a segue with the paper that you have seen, which is the Wall Street Journal Europe. So you've got Angela Merkel here, raps Putin over Ukraine. Now, we've seen in Ukraine a disaster literally unfold before our eyes. Nobody expected that war to go on for more than a year. It continues now, and there's still a humanitarian crisis there.
And it just shows you the...
And that's on our doorstep.
Yes. And we've just had VE Day, you know, and that's why Merkel was in Russia. And, you know, you have the memory, living memory, of millions of people who died. And you've got Putin, whose behaviour is actually conducive to people who are dying in the Ukraine. He is directly responsible, and I think Merkel was right to wrap him around the knuckles.
OK, Vernal, thank you so much for coming in. Good to see you.